Everyone, welcome to COP16 from wherever you've come from. Sajid and I have come from Dubai today. Special thank you to the G20 Land team for hosting this amazing pavilion and having us talk today and facilitating these important talks about restoration, preservation, and conservation of our lands. Today we're going to be talking about a very special place, and we're going to be talking about walking the talk, Terra's role in restoration and resilience. And I will let you know what Terra is in a few seconds as we go through. Just a quick introduction to ourselves. So my name is Phil Dunn. I'm the Senior Sustainability Manager at Expo City Dubai, part of Education and Culture, and my esteemed colleague somewhere, Dr. Sajid Parith, Director of Water and Climate Solutions. So we're very happy to be here with you today. We're very happy to be talking about a very important subject, which is how we use nature in cities to connect people back and to create action towards climate change. So let me take you on the journey of how we got there. It all started in November of 2013, where Dubai and the UAE won the bid to host Expo 2020, a mega event. It was interrupted by COVID, as much of the world was. It actually saw the end of 2021 and the beginning of 2022 when the event was hosted. It is now entered into, no, I'm fine. It's now entered to what we call the legacy phase. So we had a massive impact during the event. There were 24 million people that attended. 25 million people attended online. Remember, it was COVID during that time. One part that we'll focus on is the visits from the schools. So we had 1 million school visits. We've already had another 200,000 since the event has reopened as a city. Were many of you there for COP28? Did anyone come to Expo City for COP28? So some of you have already been there. Some of you have already experienced what we're going to be talking about with Terra, formerly known as the Sustainability Pavilion. The new master plan for Expo City has Terra, this circular building right at the very center of it. And that's really important. And we'll talk about the importance of why nature and cities can go together and how to develop better cities, including nature. Expo City will be around 40,000 professionals on a daily basis, 35,000 residents, 3.5 square kilometers. So it's a city. It's a real city, and it's very interesting because when mega events normally happen, they build these giant areas that aren't really scaled for human scale. They're scaled for millions of people to come through on a daily basis. And afterwards, it's really hard to integrate them back into a city. So through adaptive reuse, Expo City is reclaiming this space and turning it into a space that will turn into a very vibrant community. Sajid and I are part of Education and Culture. Education and Culture is a subset of Expo City. And as it sounds, we look at education and culture. Very good. Yeah. So it's a really important part of developing a city and often overlooked. So we're very proud of how we deal with our visitors, with tourists, with school children, with the residents of the UAE, with the residents of the city, and how we educate them and inspire them by our venues and what we do, specifically at Terra. We'll be talking about Terra for the rest of the presentation. Terra is known as a living wonder, and I'll explain to you why, but just from the picture you can see on the roof, we have 8,000 square meters of solar panels. We have additional 4,000 square meters of solar panels on these energy trees that you see spotted around the building. They track and rotate with the sun. It is a near net zero energy water and waste building. So it's a real wonder, not only from its technical abilities, but from the education programs that we deliver through it. What we are. So what we are is a bit of a challenge to explain, but we are, as a structure, as a building, one of the most sustainable buildings in the world. And then the programs that we deliver out of it really are focused on trying to reconnect people back to themselves, reconnect people back to nature, And by doing that, drive this action towards doing something, alleviating the apathy that we see towards climate action and the change that we want to see in the world. What we built. So I touched on this, but Terra as a sustainable building is generating around 4 gigawatts of electricity a year, a massive amount, enough to power around 300 homes. It recycles all of its water into gray water, black water, condensation water. We have a reverse osmosis system in there. So if you were an engineer or architect and you thought of something that you wanted to see sustainable integrated into a building, it has been put into Terra. So all those best practices have been put into one place, which makes it a very special place, not only to visit from an architectural standpoint, but from a learning perspective. So the building itself is a teaching tool of best practices around sustainability. What we do, so we're really focused on teaching people how to live better with nature. So over 50% of the world's population now live in cities. In the next 20 years, they expect 70% of the world's population to live in cities. So cities are going to be the dominant place that us humans are living in. And we need to figure out how to live in cities and with nature at the same time. So how do we do that successfully? How do we integrate the two? How do we stop competing against each other? How do we make sure that people connect back to nature, connect back to themselves? So Terra's mandate, Terra's focus, Terra's education is really trying to show how we can connect those dots together to build a world where humans and nature thrive in harmony. We do that through collection of data, specifically around the natural world, so citizen science. We do that through community groups. We use layers of ecologists and satellite imagery to also complete the picture. We look at the small things, the invisible things, the things that we don't see, like fungi and the connections under the soil, the very important things that are holding everything together. We look at nature therapy in environments. The session right before us was a wonderful meditation on connecting back to nature and the power of nature. So how we can use nature as a therapy to connect us together, and then through connecting us together, do the hard work we need to. Nature-based solutions, we'll touch on what we're talking about there. Native plant species, working groups. So that's another big focus of what we do. And of course, in the world of land restoration, that is a huge, huge subject. People often think in Dubai, in the UAE, in the deserts, there's no life. That's far from the truth. So many of you would know that already. The desert is a thriving ecosystem. We have over 600 native plants in the UAE. So connecting those dots, trying to really bring in and collaborate with the experts, whether it's medicinal plants, whether it's botanists, whether it's landscape architects such as myself, whether it's contractors, bringing them into an ecosystem to start to promote very important conversations around native plants, and thought leadership and transparency. The why. How many of you have seen this diagram before? Yeah? Yeah, great. So it's from the Stockholm Resilience Center, and it's about the 9 planetary boundaries, 9 thresholds that if we cross them in the world, it's really hard to come back from. And it's not hard for nature to come back from necessarily, but nature works on a different time frame. Nature works in eons, millions of years, billions of years, whereas humans work in what? Days, months, maybe decades at our longest. So the time frames are just out of scale. So if we look at the thresholds that are being crossed, it's really, really a complicated scientific puzzle, which Sajid will dive into later, but it's a tough subject. And so we're looking at tackling these tough subjects, but we have to talk about them in an honest, open way, and in a way that doesn't scare people, in a way it doesn't isolate people, in a way it doesn't create more apathy towards people. So we'll show you how we do that at Terra. If we look at the planetary boundaries and the changes just in the last, what do we have here? 14 years, we'll see that we've gone from 3 all the way to 6. And the ones that haven't been crossed yet are ones that are around ozone. So if you look at important conversations that have been happening with the Montreal Protocol, it was signed back in 1987. There have been things that we have come together as humanity to tackle, some problems that have been facing us, ozone being one of them, and we've been able to solve those problems as a collective. So it is important to note that we do have the ability to change the trajectory we're on. Things have changed because of the human collaboration that we've had together. When we ask people when they come to Terra if it has made a difference, 96% of them say that it has made a difference for them and inspiring them to make changes into their daily life. 54, less waste. 42, advocate for important making sustainable choices. 42, supports sustainable focused initiatives. 33, makes sustainable food choices. 31, reduce consumption. And then 4%, nah, it didn't work for me. I'm going to do nothing. Does more knowledge equal more action? What do you think? The more knowledge we get, does that mean that we're going to take more steps towards solving the climate change, solving the desertification, solving the issues that we're facing? No, not necessarily, right? I know 5-year-olds that know more than I do about sustainability. So the more knowledge that we're given doesn't necessarily mean more action. But what does? How do we bridge that gap of apathy that we're seeing? What's next? I'm going to explain to you what we do at Terra. So at Terra, we invite our visitors to connect back to nature. Through awe. We have 2 exhibits that we take people through, under the forest and under the ocean. And through wonder. We start to ask people tough questions. So tough questions where there's not necessarily a right answer. Would you rather do this? Would you rather do that? So I'm going to play a little game with you called Would You Rather? Would you rather save 1 big animal or 100 small animals? Who votes for the 1 big animal? No one. Oh, okay. 100 small animals. Everyone else is voting for the 100 small animals. Well, there's no right answer, right? We're faced with these questions every day in the choices that we're making. Our choices have effects. They have ramifications. So if you chose the 1 large animal, our ecosystems depend on creatures both big and small. We would not be here today without ants, bees, earthworms, or the millions of microscopic creatures that we cannot even see. If you chose the 100 small animals, our ecosystems depend on creatures both big and small. Our ancestors lived in a world filled with giant animals. Only a small number of these species remain. Let's continue on our journey through Terra, through our exhibitions. The Lab of Future Values, you're confronted at the end of this journey with 50 solutions that are not necessarily driven by governments. They're not necessarily driven and mandated by the governments. They're delivered by people, individuals, groups. So what we're trying to do is build this idea that your decisions matter, and then we connect them with the ideas and the actions that they can start to take. We connect back to ourselves and to one another and realize we're part of nature. Only then can we reconnect to nature and realize we are ourselves nature. Only then do we have the capacity to want to save her. So, this journey that we take people on through Terra is reconnecting them back to nature. It's letting them know that they're part of nature. It's showing them the problems that us humans are doing to nature. It's giving them the tools to understand that there are solutions. There are organizations that are doing the good work to create the world that we want to see. And then it's having them leave, hopefully, to create some action in the world. So our education program is fundamental to that. So like I said, over 1 million children visited Terra. Another 200,000 have visited us in the last year and a half. We do all kinds of hands-on workshops with them to connect them back to nature. We use the nature of our city, the nature of our facility, our native plants, our landscape that's akin to a botanical garden, all to start to connect them through it. We start to introduce them to our landscape and our nature-based solutions. What you're seeing in the background is an engineered wetland. So we treat all of our black water through the building. It flows through these engineered wetlands. It takes about a day. About 20,000 liters a day flows through. By the time it gets to the other side, it's pretty clean. We further treat it with filtration system, UV light, hydrogen peroxide. It then goes into our irrigation system and is used in our xerophytic landscape, which uses about 75% less water than a normal landscape. These native and adapted plants create this xerophytic zone. It's proving that native plants can create beautiful and sustainable gardens in the built environment. It's a playground for our citizen scientists, our native bees, birds, and others. So all these pictures have been taken at Terra. Recently, during the construction of Terra, so let's go back. During the construction of Terra about 6 years ago, some nests of honeybees actually came to Terra and built their home. We relocated them for about 6 years into an Adopt a Hive program with a local beekeeper. We've just recently brought them back, and we've created a pollinator garden for them. We're working with this beekeeper and our bees to reestablish this Apis mellifera jamitica, which is the local bees to the UAE and to the Southern Arabian Peninsula. Beekeeping, I don't know if you know, but in the UAE isn't necessarily the most sustainable, in that they bring in Egyptian bees, and often they don't survive the summer. They let them die in the summer and then they buy new bees. So these local bees are resilient. They make more honey in the summer than they do in the winter. And so we're really shifting this idea of sustainable beekeeping and how to create a resilient nature-based learning experience in the city for our visitors that come through. Our entire ecosystem has increased in strength and diversity and abundance because of this. You're seeing the human ecosystem here, harvesting honey. We invite visitors to contemplate their vital role in a brighter future and inspire by doing. So again, our hands-on approach to education. So we have workshops on growing mushrooms, on the bees, building pollinator gardens, on building water filtration systems. There's so many things that we do. And again, over 200,000 school children have come through in the last 2 years. This is one of the final galleries that we take people through, and we ask them a really important question. We ask them to consider 3 things. If your house was on fire, your children are safe, your pets are safe, everyone you love is safe, what 3 things would you grab? Which 3 things would you take with you? If your house is on fire, which 3 things would you bring? Quick, your house is burning, which 3 things would you bring? You can't. Your house is on fire. Which 3 things would you take? Maybe your passport. Maybe something important, right? Maybe something like special to you in your heart. A photo album. Which three things would you take? Hey? Your children are safe, everyone's safe. Laptop. Okay. Anyone else? Clothes? His wallet. Okay. So laptop, clothes, wallet. So these are three things, and we've asked this question to millions of people. Millions of people. Guess what they said? Huh? everyone says the same thing. They say the things that they need the most, the things that mean the most to them. But no one says, I'll take my 72-inch screen TV. No one says, I'll take my, I don't know, my blender. Everyone says the same thing. And what that makes us realize is we're all thinking the same way. We're all thinking the same way, which means if we're thinking the same way, we can collaborate together. We can start to do the things and make the hard choices that will make a difference in this world. So maybe we're not hooked up to this consumer machine that we think we are. Maybe when it comes down to our house is on fire, we have to leave. We're making the same decisions. So I'm going to leave you with this thought of how else can we make an impact. Dr. Sajid is going to start to take over with the conversation. But think about this. If we're all thinking the same way, that means a good thing. That means that we can come together and collaborate. So, Dr. Sajid, I'll invite you to the stage,
Yeah, thank you, Phil.
and and please take over.
Hey, thank you. After that amazing talk by Phil, where he triggered all of you to think about how collaboratively we can work together on saving nature, and especially in the context of COP16 desertification or restoration, how can we combat desertification together? I will take you guys through a little bit on a technical journey. Again, from our institute point of view, what we are doing in combating desertification or saving water, climate change, on biodiversity conservation, etc. So I will just take you through some programs which we are focusing right now as our institute on this. It very much resonate with something happened. So while she's on it, it very much resonate with what Phil went through now. So the major advantage or the major the major advantage of our place, our Expo City Dubai and the Terra, is that we walk the talk, and that is what he showed, how we make an impact through our exhibits, through our workshops, through our nature garden, and how we impact the school children, which we believe should be very important, because the future generation, the collective thinking of saving nature, if we can make an impact at that level, we believe that that is the strongest impact we can make. So that is the thousands of millions of school kids we are talking about all over UAE coming over to our place, learning about mushroom growing, beekeeping, sustainability, etc. But at the same time, we are also diving deep into the planetary boundaries, which Phil just touched upon, because our entire ecosystem is based on this study by the Stockholm Resilience Center. And why this study? This is not because there's an only study, because there are many studies on the impacts of climate change, the impact of desertification, the anthropogenic effects, the great acceleration in the 50s. But this study just culminates all other findings into one diagram. So that is why we like this. And we think that there's a better way of informing people where we are. So as you can see, there are 9 boundaries defined: ocean acidification, freshwater change, land system change, biosphere integrity, climate change. I'm not going to take a lecture on what they are, but I will touch upon some of them. And you can see a legend where it shows where we are as a earth, as a system where we are. And other than three, all the six are have passed the safe operating zone. So what you see here in the center, this green circle, this is the safe operating zone. If all the boundaries stay in that circle, that is the ideal situation the earth should be in, right? So that is the concept of planet boundaries. But unfortunately we are not in. You can see change in biosphere integrity, for example, has crossed the high risk line here. So this is the legend which will help you. And the land system change also, we are close to high risk line. Freshwater change, for example, the green water and blue water is also coming. And I really doubt this, for example, I'm not doubting this study, but I think this is much more worse than now because of the demand for food, the demand for irrigation. You know that the 76 percentage, greater than 75 percentage of the fresh water is used for irrigation. And most of this water, with this climate change, with this erratic weather, most of this water we are taking from groundwater. So the blue water sources are depleting like never before. So I would say the next iteration we will see more effect on freshwater change with decreasing rainfall and increasing use of blue water for producing more and more food around the world. Um, so, and the land system change. And I would say that even though the land restoration, the degradation, desertification is not mentioned here, many of the boundaries are linked very closely to the degradation or the desertification of the land, right? For example, the land system change. Land system change talk about converting the natural land for agriculture, for urban, etc. The forest land changes, and it directly contributes to that planet boundary, and it also connect very well with not very well, connect a lot with the topic of the COP16, UNCCD COP16 here. So our aim as Terra is to work more on this, to communicate the science related to planetary boundaries in a way that the common people, the mass, will understand it and make an impact on the people on that. We are not necessarily a scientific organization, so we don't create science, but we are a platform which will connect the science and the people. So where we are now, planetary health of the Earth. This is the recent planetary health check report from 2024, just recently published. You can download it online. We are very close to the high risk line as a whole. So this is the average of all the 9 planetary boundaries, how it looks. So planetary health at a glance, we are here. So we need to speed up all the actions which we are taking to slow down or reverse back into the safe operating space. The 3 aspects of planetary health is the stability of the system in a way that we stay in safe operating space, and the resilience of the system, of the people, of the flora, fauna, the ecosystems to stay, to withstand all the changes happening around. So that is what we thrive for, or we want to develop a resilient community. Whenever we talk about disasters, for example, we talk about having a resilient community, resilient to the impact of disasters, and which will act as life support functions. Just to give you a context on what happened, so Holocene, 10,000 years of back, it started, the human civilization started. And I think the year which all changed, or the decade, 1950s onwards, you can see the Holocene continued. But there's a great acceleration in terms of socioeconomic development, the technological development, the industrial revolution. And with that, we also started to see the impact on the uh, climate, the weather, and the earth. The next slide, don't get scared, but it's just to show that um, with the great acceleration in the 50s and beyond, we saw a lot of good things happening. You know, the GDP, the development that we talk about in the urban areas, in the industries, all the inventions. You know, it all took us through the energy, the with that, we also had population increasing, urban population, large dams, large food security projects, irrigation projects, the telecommunication systems. But with that, we also had impacts. And if we correlate, we can see that each of these development has resulted directly or indirectly. I'm not saying it is one to one. I'm just saying all this development has resulted also in impacts, um, as in the increased carbon dioxide, the methane, the global warming, the climate change, the um, ocean acidification, surface temperature, etc., etc. So this really shows how the development, the socio-economic and the technological development, while it really helped us as humans to have a decent life, but also has impacted our nature and our earth systems. The question is, are these boundaries, you saw these 9 planetary boundaries, are these interconnected? Obviously, these are interconnected. And one of the major topic of interconnectedness is also the land degradation, right? So many of these planet boundaries also results in degradation of land and biodiversity and the ecosystems, which we are talking about quite a lot. And you can see a lot of interconnectedness between these planetary boundaries. So this, um, with this, keeping this in mind, there is no one-to-one solution for each of the planetary boundaries to solve those or to bring back those planetary boundaries into the safe operating space. Um, Again, from the report, what is important for us, and here again, I'm going to talk a little bit about the technology we are going to use. So how, this is also an example how we can use the technological inventions or digital innovations to solve the issues which we are facing with the climate change and other related issues. So at least in the case of the research related to planetary boundaries, they have identified 4 major digital innovation or technological interventions to monitor the boundaries. The monitoring the planetary boundaries means there are many control variables which they have identified, which the scientists have identified, which will represent the status of each of the planetary boundary. For example, land system change. If you monitor the biodiversity health over at different scales, at national scale, at basin scale, at global scale, we will get to know how the land system change planetary boundary is performing. Is it going worse? Is it going fine? And we also have to do it in a timely manner. In timely manner means in a time series, in different epochs to find where we are. So remote sensing is one such approach. Ground-based observations, of course, we cannot discard ground-based observations at all. Earth system modeling, data integration, statistical modeling. These are the 4 different approaches which are identified as the 4 major technological interventions we can do to monitor planetary boundaries. This will not solve the issues. The solution of this issue is actual ground level impact oriented interventions that need political willingness, that also need willingness from us, from the public. But what is also important is that to understand where we are, the monitoring and quantification of these control variables which controls the planetary boundaries is very important. So I think we as ours kind of institutes can play a big role in monitoring, in reporting where we are in these planetary boundaries. And those who can do that, I think we should always do our work in contributing to this. So as an example, I like this this map. I mean, this data is coming completely from satellites. So this is a sea surface temperature measured from satellites. And the last year, August was the warmest month ever reported. I'm not sure about 2024, but 2023 August was the warmest month ever reported in the world. And it was recorded from the satellites. There was no other way. Even though we have ground observations, we cannot cover the entire globe using ground observations. We can only use samples of ground observations to validate or calibrate the data coming from satellite. But this is fortunately or unfortunately the only way to do the measurements over the entire globe. And this kind of data sets are available daily for the entire globe. Even in during a day, we can get it at multiple times. Hourly data sets are now coming out from the satellites. Another study which caught my eye here is the mangroves ecosystems at risk of collapse by 2050. It's a study done by IUCN. Again, it's a combination of data coming from satellites and ground observations where they mapped the entire mangroves ecosystem all over the world to critically endangered, least concern, data deficient, etc., etc. So it gives us an idea, or the policymakers, to get an idea about where they should focus on investments, etc. Not only policymakers, but also the big climate investors, which we are talking about in all the COPs right now. So these kind of studies, and this is where we are playing a role in quantifying and in prioritizing where we should prioritize our investments and work. Um, so just to give you a context, Earth observation, we are talking about monitoring our planet from space, satellites with a lot of sensors there. They can measure the temperature, they can measure the altitude, they can measure the water use, evapotranspiration. That means they can measure the soil moisture, they can be used to measure the crop types, how much crop is being grown where, etc., etc. And the advantage is that it has a global coverage, so we can study anywhere in the globe. So we also want to leverage these data sets, which is coming from different space agencies. Especially we use in our programs, we use the public data which are available. So these are data sets which are available free of cost, open source. So, the whatever programs we develop using this Earth observation data, it can be scaled or it can be transferred to anywhere, any other countries in the world. So that is one big key parameter or key constraint which we keep in our mind when we develop our programs. So what we use that for? We use that for the quantitative overview of systems. So at Terra, we use basically these three verticals. From a digital innovation standpoint of view, we use citizen science. Phil just covered the citizen science, how we use citizen science programs such as BioBlitz to develop the capacity on how to record biodiversity in a natural area around you. So we run those programs. We also run capacity development programs surrounding it. We also do geospatial modeling. For example, one of the examples which I will also take you through in the following slides is the nature-based solutions in the cities. And right now that is one of the biggest need. As Phil pointed out, more than 70% of the world's population will be in the cities. And most of those cities, and in that I think majority of the cities are going to be coastal. That also add the vulnerability of the cities, right, in terms of climate change and the disasters. So it's very important that when for the city planners, for the mayors, for the policymakers to understand what kind of changes, interventions they can make to reduce the impacts of the disasters, ever increasing disasters due to climate change, and it's only going to increase. So one of the solutions which we are also coming up with is geospatial modeling to map different nature-based solutions, where which nature-based solution are fit where in a city context. The third one is Earth observation for biodiversity monitoring and land and water resource quantification. I will just go through three more slides showing an example of what we are doing in nature-based solutions. So the World Bank has come up with a model called nature-based solutions opportunity scan. So that means what are the opportunity in a city to implement a particular nature-based solution. And they have a wide range of nature-based solutions. It is not complete, but it covers majority of it, which can be implemented in an urban area. And we have a four-step model where the major ones are mapping NBS suitability, which nature-based solution is suitable where and why. But what the most advantageous one is modeling NBS benefits. To make the policymakers understand and all the donors to make it to donate or to invest, or the private companies to invest in nature-based solutions, they need to also understand the benefits of it, right? And when we talk the benefits in terms of monetary or in economical terms, it will become more easy to make it practical. I think that is very important. We have been talking about suitability mapping, show the map, prepare a report, and we finish it. But we want to go that extra mile, start from the map, and convert that map into actionable information. I think that is where we have a gap, because we have thousands of reports, thousands of map on nature-based solutions, etc. But modeling NBS benefits and giving it a beneficiary turn in terms of economic or finance, which will attract more funds and make it more feasible, and also a decision support model. And we are also going to run, so it gives the priority areas within a city for these kind of nature-based solutions. We are right now trying to run this for the city of Dubai, where we are coming from, because Dubai also faced big flood in April 2024. And if we can believe the predictions, we might have such similar scenarios in future as well. May not be next year, but in few years down the time. So it's the right time to think about what we can do where. And there will be a first training program will be run on this at our institute in next year, first quarter of next year. We also want to extend this modeling into 10 cities in the MENA region, the Middle East and North African region, and we are in the process of running a feasibility study on that. Another project which we are now involved is IFI. Sorry, I put IFI here. It's an international financial institute. Actually, they are the donors like World Bank, Asian Development Bank, Islamic Development Bank. So we are developing a EO toolkit for them to, which will guide them on how to use Earth observation satellites in guiding or in monitoring and evaluating their investments. And their investments are mainly in the countries where a lot of development sector projects are taking place. It can be irrigation project, it can be wash project, the sanitation projects, it can be infrastructure projects. How can we make sure that these investments have resulted in the right impact as listed in the initial project document? And we are developing a toolkit which is called Earth Observation Toolkit to use data from satellites, digital innovation, to monitor different phases of the project, and also after the project, how to monitor and evaluate the impact created by this project. So we are right now working with the Islamic Development Bank to create this project, hoping that we will be able to extend this project into other international finance institutes. One of the example is something which I have developed before with the World Bank, is a water accounting generator. So this one is a web tool where you can draw or you can upload any area in the world, and it will create a detailed water accounting report. It will give you the baseline report. It will give you where that area is in terms of water use, how much agriculture, how much urban area, how much water is used by different sectors, etc., etc. And it also gives you the IPCC, the climate change prediction, where that area will go in future. So it's completely automated, And this is the kind of toolkit we are also developing for Islamic Development Bank, but for more from a project management perspective. And the the idea is to leverage satellite data. The back end of this reporting is 95% data coming from satellites. I think the need of the current scenario is to have these kind of tools which will really help to take actions or take decisions, because we have been, as I said, we have been creating a lot of reports, a lot of maps, but nothing not nothing, but most of them don't translate to actions. So how can we do that? I think that last step is what we want to focus quite a lot into. So these are the yeah, the topics which cover in that automatically generated report. If anyone is interested, I will be happy to show this at a break time. Um, the last part is the monitoring essential biodiversity variables. In this, we focus on something called GeoBone, using geospatial data for measuring essential biodiversity variables, and something called HE biodiversity targets, which is part of the Convention on Biodiversity um, biological diversity. So we are working on different approaches to measure different variables like the distribution, the land cover, the heterogeneity, how much heterogeneous a landscape is, the fragmentation, landscape fragmentation. And I started my career with doing this aspect using remote sensing in 2003. We were doing the fragmentation analysis for big forests in India using satellite data. And after a few years, I thought, that importance will go down. But now I recap into these topics, and I see that the importance is still very, very relevant. And it's to a fact that we need to actually scale this fragmentation analysis and other things into other ecosystems other than natural forests, maybe to urban areas, the natural parks, to identify how fragmented we are, the gap analysis, etc., etc. And one of the primary data sources again satellites. So we want to work more on this, especially in an urban context, and see how we can connect these fragments to create a naturally thriving ecosystems, and that is very important. So this was a very short overview on how we are using digital innovation and technology to inform the policymakers and the scientists and the public on how we can use this to connect um, and solve some of the issues which we were talking in the COP16 and also related to the planetary boundaries. I will stop here. Phil, you want to add something more? Okay, thank you, Phil. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, we both are here. Any questions now? And please do visit Terra when you are in Dubai next. Please connect with us.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, gosh. Please, ladies first. You sure? Go for it, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank Thank you so much for your nice presentation. And as a scientist, please accept my big congratulations to you and your colleague for your scientific, innovative, and practical solution that you have done in Dubai. And I'm very surprised because I have a lot of experience from. I come from Iran. I'm a professor at university, and I have visited a lot of country from Iran to Belgium, Netherlands, China, and most of innovative solution that I have seen around the world, you have implemented in Dubai, and it's so excellent. But my main question is about, as Phil mentioned, nature-based solution that you have used in your field. It was about fungi. And also, I have done a project about a mycorrhiza fungi to rehabilitation of degraded land. I want to know. Can I give more information about you about the fungi? You use it injection the root area to resilience of plant to against salinity or humidity, or no? It used for the enhancing of and improving the soil structure. And the second of my question is about, do you have any project to fixation of sand dune? Because as you know, around the Dubai highway, there are a lot of sand movement that it is a very serious threat for highway. Do you have any project for them or not? Thank you so much.
I'll take this question, Sajid. So thank you very much. Fungi is such a fascinating topic. And so half of our exhibitions at Terra is dedicated to under the forest and the connection of mycorrhiza and the ways that trees talk to each other. We call it the wood wide web. We, as a facility, connect with scientists like yourself. So it's scientists like you that we like to bring together and have these conversations, do research with, use our facility as a living laboratory. So we have several nature-based solutions. We're not integrating fungi into those solutions necessarily. We do a little bit with our wetlands, as you would know. There's a synergy with the fungi and with the roots and the bacteria that happen there. We have green roof solutions. We have the wetland solutions. We use goats to remediate soil and to also trim the landscapes. We have a whole bunch of different things. Fungi is a part of our exhibitions. It is part of our research in inventorying fungi species, but no, not directly with any innovations around stabilizing dunes. Love to talk to you further about that after this talk.
Okay, thank you.
We can cover the second one. It's very interesting that you touched upon that topic. We are not doing any project on that, but I just received a message from a student in Iran. Maybe he's studying at IHE Delft in Netherlands. So he did a model on sand dunes, and he just messaged me yesterday. He was one of my last batch of students, and he messaged me yesterday. Oh, are you? I did this. Are you planning to do something in Dubai on this? So yeah, we'll talk about it. But we are not doing any such projects on that. Yeah. And which university from?
I work at University of Tehran.
University of Terra.
Yeah.
I've been to. I think university. I've worked in Urmia Lake quite a lot.
And it should be noted, I have a national project about the sand dune fixation in
Yeah.
Urmia Lake with mycorrhiza fungi.
Oh, okay.
It
Wow.
was so amazing.
Wow,
Yes.
that's cool. So I worked with the Urmia Lake Restoration Program. You are ULRP.
No,
Yeah.
no. It
No,
was
there-
a scientific project, and the University of Tehran is foundation of this project.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. Any more questions? Yeah.
Yeah, my question was on the due processing tools that you guys are using, the remote sensing scripts.
Yeah.
Do you guys host them on GitHub or something for us to contribute to, or
Yeah. So
take and localize?
yeah, so most of the code which we develop is open source. So I can share my GitHub as this. So our institute is a transition phase. I joined in March, and we are establishing this part of the unit. So most of the GitHub part which I have is in my personal space. So I will share that GitHub to you. And most of them, all the codes, all the processing are done using open source libraries and open source data. We have not yet explored. That doesn't make sense to scale it up. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Because we will be organizing hackathons regularly.
Yeah.
So this could be something someone can take,
Absolutely.
localize,
Absolutely. Yeah.
contribute back, and so we can enriching it over time.
Yeah. So
Thanks.
most of this, the report generator, for example, it is hosted in a server in Germany. Actually, it's called Hetzner. It's a private one. It's not open because for the obvious reason. But it's a Linux-based server where we host these kind of applications for other students. So we can talk more about it. I would be really interested to know more.
Thanks, everyone. We're out of time. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
today.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks again.